Hey guys, I've been playing around in Unity and I just wanted to quickly show you how to add a simple flashlight object to your game. You know, in most first-person shooters, or a lot of first-person shooters anyway, you have a flashlight that you can toggle on and off to illuminate dark areas. I want to add that. So you can see I've created a small scene with just a floor and a couple walls, and I've intentionally left out a directional light so that it's very dark. If we go in, you can see that. It's very dark and should be easy to illuminate and show with our flashlight. So the first thing that we want to do is create an empty game object. So we'll go GameObject, create empty, and we'll call that flashlight. And the reason we want to create an empty game object is so that we can parent all of our lights and sounds and everything to this object so that it's all self-contained. We can create a prefab out of it and use it wherever we want. The other thing we want to do is now add it to our first-person controller, and I'm going to actually add it to the camera. If I had a model of a gun or something, I could add it to the end and have like a flashlight attachment to the underside of my gun or whatever. But I'm just going to add this to my camera. So what I want to do is create a script, and so I'll just create C# script called flashlight, and we'll come into here and add a few things. So the first thing that we need is a light to control, right? We have to be able to turn the light on or off. So we'll call that light underscore light. The reason we're using an underscore is because there's already a property named light, and we'll mask it if we don't name it differently. The next thing we want to do is to require a light component. So we can use the require component method and pass it a type. So the type is light. And what that'll do is when we add the script to a game object, it'll enforce any required components to be on there. So it'll automatically add a light to our game object when we drag the flashlight script onto it, which I think is pretty cool. And then we'll want to cache that. So we'll say light equals get component light, and we'll cache that so that we don't have to look it up every update frame. And then, so very simply, what we want to do is to create a new axis. So we have, you know, our horizontal movement, our vertical movement, our firing. We want to create a new axis that we can use to toggle our flashlight on and off. And to do that, we'll go over to Unity, we'll edit, project settings, input. And it's just going to be a button we press. You can see all the axes that we have set up. It's going to be a button we press like fire or whatever. So we're actually going to go to the fire 1 axis. We're going to duplicate the array element. And then we're going to open that up, and we're going to call this just flashlight. You can call it whatever you want, but we're going to call it flashlight. We're going to set the positive button to F, and we're going to delete the alt positive button. So that way we now have a new axis so that we don't have to define the player's keys for them. They can change this in our game if we want to. So we'll come back to our script, and we'll say, in our update function, we'll say if input.get button down flashlight. Then it's really simple. We'll just say light.enabled equals not light.enabled. So if we're on, turn off. If we're off, turn on. The nice thing about input.get button down is that it only returns true for the first frame that you've pressed the button. So if you press and hold, our flashlight won't toggle on and off rapidly. It'll just turn on once, and we have to press it again and turn it off. So let's go back over here, and we'll take our flashlight and add the flashlight script to it. And for some reason, we did not create a light. I'm not sure why that didn't work. There it goes. Apparently I hadn't saved it. So you see it automatically added this light component to our flashlight game object. We don't want a point light, we want a spotlight that looks more like a flashlight. And I've kind of played around there with these numbers. So I like range of 15 and an angle of 60, and then a little more yellow for my light. Not a lot yellow, just a little. And I think that looks pretty good. So let's try it out. Come in here, and you'll notice that we don't have a flashlight. So one thing that we forgot to do is to take our flashlight and zero it out, and then change the rotation. See, we're rotated 122 degrees right there. So while we're facing one direction, the flashlight is basically pointing behind us. So let's try that again after zeroing out our rotation. And we can see we have this really nice flashlight that we can turn off and on. So you can see that we get a lot of stuff for free here. We can, because the camera is transforming, we can look up and the flashlight will move with us. In a second, we'll add a sound effect so that we can click on and off, but for now I wanted to address something. So say you were adding your flashlight to something that doesn't move around, like I don't know, the barrel of your gun, or if we had parented it to our first-person controller, check out what happens. It'll pan with us, but it doesn't go up and down because our first-person controller is not actually what's rotating right now. It is our camera that's rotating. So to solve that, we add it to the camera, but if you happen to have a situation where you can't add it to the camera or something else comes up, there's another trick that we can use. So let's go over here to our flashlight, and we are going to say transform dot rotation equals, or no, I'm sorry, we're going to say transform dot rotate, and then we need to give it a vector 3 of Euler angles to rotate to. So we need some, what we need is a source object, right? We need to have a source, in this case the camera, that we can read the current rotation from and know where we should be pointing at. So we will create a new public game object called source, and if you're familiar with Unity, setting this as public means that we can come over here to the editor window, and we should see our game object. No, I guess not. We should see our game object taking a source, but that is not working. Oh, we have a compile error, so that won't obviously show up because it's not compiling. So we will now have a source, and we'll drag our camera onto that. And now we can use the transform.rotate. And what we want to do is take our source.transform.rotation.Euler angles, which gives us a vector 3, and subtract our transform.rotation.Euler angles. So what we're doing is, here I'll switch over to my drawing program. So we have, from the side view, our man. He looks awesome, very first person-y. And so we have a camera that's kind of our eyes, and it's looking out, and this is a 0 degrees X rotation. I cannot draw a straight line to save my life. But as we look up, our camera is still looking in this direction, and our player is now looking up here. So what we want to do is take this difference. So we're basically subtracting the source, which is our camera, minus the flashlight rotation to find what change we need to make to be looking in the same direction. Hopefully that made sense. And this is what that's doing. So let's come back in here and run it. And works like a charm. So again, that is what we got for free when we attached our flashlight directly to the camera. But if you can't attach it directly to the camera and you need to manage the X rotation manually, this is a great way to do it. So the last thing that I want to do is to come back over here, and we want to add a click sound. It's not very impressive when our flashlight turns on and off silently. So let's add a public audio clip toggle sound. And I happen to have one. It's just a very simple click. I got it. It was Creative Commons licensed, and I will go ahead and add that link to the comments so you guys can check it out. But we want to add our, well, let's make sure that's saving. We need our toggle sound to be the clip. So the way that we will do that is during toggle, we will just say audio, I think it's audio source dot play clip at point, and the first argument is the clip, and the second is the position. So we are going to play our toggle sound at our transform dot, I think transform dot Euler angles will do it. or no, I'm sorry, we want our transform dot position. We don't want our rotation. So we want our position. And that will just say, play this sound at the flashlight's location when you toggle. Oh, that's nice. So that was it. That was a simple flashlight. You can add that to your first person, or you can add that to whatever other location that you want a flashlight, and it will look around with you. And I hope that that works out and is helpful for you guys. Thanks.